High above the patchwork world of greens and blues, in a city made of fluff and vapor, lived a tiny, perfect raindrop. Our raindrop was one of many, a shimmering jewel nestled in the soft white cushion of a great cloud. This cloud wasn't just any cloud. It was a bustling departure lounge for the sky lanes, the invisible highways that raindrops travel to reach the world below. For most raindrops, this was the most exciting time. They would wiggle and jiggle, filled with anticipation for the great plunge. But our little raindrop was different. While others saw a grand adventure, our raindrop saw a terrifyingly long drop. It was afraid of heights. The moment of the great plunge was drawing near. A gentle rumbling vibration hummed through the cloud, a sign that the journey was about to begin. The other raindrops bounced with excitement. They chattered about the gardens they would water and the rivers they would join. They spoke of dancing on leaves and making music on rooftops. Our little raindrop, however, felt a cold knot of fear tighten inside. It shuffled back from the edge, trying to hide behind a thicker wisp of cloud. From its hiding spot, it could see everything. The world below looked so very small and so very far away. The thought of falling through all that open air made it feel wobbly and faint. This was more than just a little worry. It was a deep, trembling fear that held it captive. A wise old sunbeam, ancient and warm, noticed the little raindrop's distress. The sunbeam didn't say a word, but it cast a gentle, golden light around our protagonist, a silent gesture of understanding. The light felt like a warm hug, and in its glow, the little raindrop saw things more clearly. It saw the eager faces of its friends, the deep blue of the sky waiting to be explored, and the thirsty world below, waiting for a refreshing drink. The sunbeam's warmth seemed to communicate a secret message. The journey ahead wasn't about the fall, but about the landing. It was about the purpose waiting at the end. The little raindrop felt a tiny flicker of something new inside its fear. It wasn't bravery, not yet, but it was curiosity. The sunbeam's silent encouragement suggested that perhaps the scariest paths lead to the most beautiful destinations. And with that thought, the quest to find true courage had officially begun, even if the raindrop didn't know it yet. The setup was complete. The cloud city was abuzz. The moment had arrived. A deep, gentle hum resonated, signaling the opening of the sky lanes. One by one, with joyful whoops and sparkling trails, the other raindrops began their descent. They tumbled and twirled, spun and soared, each on their own unique adventure. Our little raindrop watched, its heart thumping like a tiny drum against a taut leaf. It crept to the edge, a precipice of pure white fluff, and peered down. The world seemed to spin, a dizzying tapestry of distance. The fear was a heavy blanket, pinning it in place. It squeezed its eyes shut, wishing it could simply evaporate and reappear on the ground without the terrifying journey in between. It thought that perhaps there was another way, a less direct route, a slower, safer path. It saw a gentle breeze, a soft-spoken current of air, drifting lazily by. Instead of leaping, the little raindrop let this gentle breeze scoop it up. It was a sideways journey, not a downward one. For a while, this felt much better. It floated along, parallel to the ground, watching the world slide by like a painted picture. It drifted past other clouds, some small and wispy, others big and booming with distant thunder. It saw a flock of birds, their wings painting graceful arcs in the sky, and they offered cheerful chirps as they passed. This was nice, the raindrop thought. This wasn't scary at all. But it was also not getting it any closer to the ground where it needed to be. The thirsty flowers and dry creek beds remained just as far away as before. This gentle ride was comfortable, but it wasn't the journey it was meant to take. Suddenly, a new character entered the scene. A boisterous, playful gust of wind. This was no gentle breeze. This was a wind whistler, a mischievous spirit of the sky. The wind whistler swirled around the little raindrop, lifting it high and then dipping it low in a thrilling, roller coaster ride. At first, the raindrop was terrified, clinging to the air itself. But the wind whistler's energy was not mean, it was joyful. It seemed to be showing the raindrop the fun of the sky, the dance of the currents. It spun the raindrop through a sun-drenched patch of air, creating a tiny, fleeting rainbow. The experience was breathtaking, but every time the wind whistler swooped downwards, the raindrop's fear would surge back, and it would instinctively pull away, trying to stay high up. The wind whistler, sensing the raindrop's deep-seated fear, eventually gave a gentle, swirling goodbye and zipped off to play elsewhere. The raindrop was alone again, floating, but no closer to its destination. It was then that it noticed something small and seemingly insignificant. Drifting up from the world below was a tiny, brown seed, carried aloft by a parachute of silky white fluff. It was a milkweed seed. The little seed had traveled a great distance, riding the air currents on its own epic journey. The raindrop watched as the seed, having reached the peak of its flight, simply let go. It released its hold on the wind and began a slow, graceful descent, trusting the air to carry it to a new home where it could grow. The raindrop was mesmerized. That tiny seed, so much smaller and more fragile than a raindrop, showed no fear. It simply embraced its journey. It was a powerful, silent lesson. Courage wasn't about being big or strong or loud. It was about letting go. This observation sparked a change in the little raindrop. It looked down again, and this time it didn't just see the frightening distance. It focused on a specific spot. A small patch of garden where a single, bright yellow flower was drooping, its petals curled inward from thirst. The raindrop suddenly felt a powerful sense of purpose. That flower needed a drink. The dry soil around it needed moisture. Its journey wasn't just a scary fall, it was a mission of helpfulness. The thought of helping that little flower began to grow, and as it grew, it pushed the fear into a smaller corner of its heart. The fear was still there, a quiet hum in the background, but it was no longer the only thing the raindrop could feel. Now it also felt purpose. It felt a sense of responsibility. It felt the beginning of bravery. Have you ever felt really scared to try something, but then you thought about how it might help someone else? Sometimes thinking about others can make us feel braver than we ever thought we could be. The little raindrop took another look at the drooping yellow flower. It imagined the feeling of landing on its soft petal, of giving it the water it needed to stand up tall and face the sun again. The image was so clear and so happy that it made the raindrop feel a little stronger. It knew that the fear of the fall was real, but the need of the flower was also real. And for the first time, the need felt more important than the fear. It was a tipping point. The wise sunbeam's warm light seemed to pulse gently, a silent cheer from across the sky. The raindrop was remembering the secret message. The journey is defined by the landing. It floated for a moment longer, gathering its thoughts. It observed the world below one more time, not as a scary, distant place, but as a destination. A place where it had a job to do. A place where it could make a difference, even as a single tiny raindrop. It knew it couldn't stay in the sky forever, drifting on lazy breezes. That was not its purpose. Its purpose was to fall, to travel the sky lane, and to give life. What helps you feel brave when you are feeling scared? Is it thinking of a happy place, or maybe thinking about how you can be a helper? For our little raindrop, it was the thought of being a helper that gave it the final push. It wiggled to the very edge of the cloud, its body shimmering with a mixture of nervous energy and newfound resolve. The other raindrops were long gone. The cloud was quiet now. It was just our raindrop, the vast open sky, and a choice. The choice to stay in the familiar comfort of the cloud, or to embrace the scary, unknown journey to fulfill its purpose. It took a deep, metaphorical breath, focusing all its energy on the image of the thirsty yellow flower. The fear was still there, a tiny tremor, but now it was surrounded by a much bigger feeling: courage. True courage. The moment had come. The little raindrop closed its eyes for just a second, picturing the drooping yellow flower. It pictured the flower's petals opening up, refreshed and vibrant. That single, powerful image was all it needed. With a final, determined push, it tipped over the edge of the cloud and began to fall. The initial sensation was a terrifying lurch, a feeling of weightlessness that made its very core tremble. The wind roared past, a loud and chaotic symphony. This was it. This was the great plunge. This was the very thing it had feared for so long. It kept its focus tight, a tiny speck of purpose falling through an endless blue. But then something amazing happened. As it fell, It began to notice the details of the journey. It saw the world not as a scary, distant blur, but as a beautiful, approaching reality. It flew past the birds it had seen earlier, close enough now to see the intricate patterns on their feathers. It saw the wind not as a monster, but as a partner, holding it steady on its course. It felt a sense of exhilaration bubbling up inside, mixing with the fear and diluting it. It was still scared, but it was also flying. It was on the greatest ride of its life. The fear hadn't vanished. Instead, it had transformed. It was no longer a heavy blanket, but a thrilling buzz of energy. The raindrop realized that this was the secret. True courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was feeling the fear, and taking the plunge anyway. It was triumphing over the fear by focusing on something more important. As it got closer to the ground, the world rushed up to meet it. The patch of garden became clearer. The drooping yellow flower grew larger and larger until the raindrop could see the delicate lines on each of its petals. It braced itself for the landing, its journey almost complete. With a soft, gentle splash, it landed exactly where it had hoped, right in the center of the thirsty flower. The impact was soft, a tiny cool kiss on the warm petal. The raindrop spread out, its journey over. It had made it. It had traveled the sky lanes and completed its mission. It watched as the flower seemed to sigh with relief. Slowly, as the little raindrop's moisture was absorbed, the flower's petals began to unfurl, lifting its face towards the sun. The yellow seemed brighter, more cheerful. The raindrop had done it. It had made a difference. A profound sense of joy and accomplishment washed over it, completely washing away the last remnants of its fear. It had been afraid, but it had been brave. And now it was proud. Lying there on the petal of the grateful flower, the world looked completely different. It wasn't a scary place seen from far away. It was a beautiful, vibrant, and welcoming home. The sun, which had been hidden, now peeked out from behind the clouds. Its rays shone through the other falling raindrops, and across the sky, a magnificent rainbow appeared, a bridge of brilliant color. It was like the sky was celebrating the little raindrop's victory. Our hero, now part of a small, shimmering puddle on the flower, understood everything. Courage wasn't something you were born with. It was something you found, deep inside yourself, when you decided that your purpose was bigger than your fear. What other kinds of courage are there to discover? Maybe next time, we'll find the courage to speak up, on an adventure with a little cricket who lost his chirp. Educational core. This story teaches children how to understand and process the feeling of fear to achieve a goal. Moral core. True courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it.